for your patience here on TikTok. Usually we start the live simultaneously. Again, this is federal government, and today we are talking about cases, landmark cases that their constitutionality arises from some of those amendments. There are three of them, but from those amendments that we consider Reconstruction era amendments. Okay. And the reason why I want to talk about these landmark cases and referring back to those amendments, because we're seeing things play out here on the national stage through our federal courts. So our federal courts are located all over the country. But when federal courts make decisions, they can have national impact. So I want to look at those cases, landmark cases, because landmark cases can be challenged, right? Landmark cases can be challenged, as was Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade was a landmark case that was challenged just a few years ago. And not only was it challenged, it was overturned. Okay, it was overturned. So if you're with me, and I know you all are, but if you're with me, do me a favor, go ahead and drop in the chat, landmark, LANDMARK, landmark. And for some of you, this is a bit of a review, but I want to talk about it anyway. And then I'm going to pivot and we're going to talk about a couple of other things seemingly related. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I see y'all are writing in the chat, landmark. If you're just joining us, thank you. We're just getting started, so you're fine. We're like 2 minutes in. This is federal government. I am the pretty professor. And so we're looking at, this is our ninth week, and we are looking at Reconstruction era amendments. There are three of them. The 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment are the Reconstruction era amendments that were passed through Congress and ratified by the several states. Okay. Remember, when we went over the Constitution, we went over the various articles, right? Remember, the Constitution itself is made up of 7 articles, the preamble, and then 7 articles. And then we have amendments to the Constitution. I was looking for my ring, but I don't have it on. I came home from working, got comfortable. But I was gonna, I like to use that exercise, so I'll use my earring instead. So my ear is the Constitution, right? My ear is the Constitution. Everybody got that? My ear is the Constitution. Me adding this earring and just putting the earring on, that is Congress passing that amendment. Me taking the back to the earring and adding it, that represents the states, the several states ratifying it. All right. How many of you recall that lecture, or if you didn't hear that lecture or those examples, because I think I've done it on a few videos that are on my page, actually, on my TikTok page. But how many of you are familiar with that concept? You understand what amendments are. Amendments are additions to the Constitution. Okay, so we're going to do the earring again. My ear is the Constitution. My ear is the preamble, the 7 articles, and the signatures, right? That's my ear. Me adding the earring, right? Me adding the earring is Congress passing the amendments. Me taking the back and securing the earring to the ear, right, is the several states ratifying it. So I want to go over that first. All right. So when we look at the Constitution, we look at How does the Constitution, how do you amend the Constitution? This is like a quiz for us. We kind of midtermish, right? Where in the Constitution does it provide how we amend this document? Where in the Constitution? Anybody recall which amendment it is? I'm not amendment, which article it is? And the best way to do it is to go start with number 1 and go all the way down. So what is Article 1? What does Article 1 provide? Anybody? I got to learn how to add guests. I wish y'all could raise your hands so I could add guests. Y'all remember what Article 1 is? So Article 1 is the legislature. So I'm going to give you a cheat code, right? When you were probably 8 or 9, 3rd or 4th grade, you began learning about the structure of government, like in general, unless you're really young. Now, if you were born somewhere after say after 2005, I don't know what you was taught. But if you were here prior to that, I would imagine around 3rd or 4th grade, so when you're about 8 or 9, you learned about the branches of government. So we have 3 branches of government, and you probably learned those 3 branches of government in this order: legislature, executive, and judicial, right? Article 1, legislature. Article 2, executive. Article 3, judicial. Okay. Now, what is the significance of that? The significance of that is, the first 3. What is Article 4? In this class, in our virtual class, I have talked about Article 4 so much because Article 4 provides insight and understanding about what makes us the United States of America, about our relationships, right? Our relationships as the United States of America. So again, this is a review. For some of you, it's your first lesson. But for some of you, it's a review. So I gave you a term several weeks ago. Remember, this is week 9 that we've been doing this. And I said federalism, right? Federalism is the relationship between a central government and regional governments. Y'all remember that? Federalism is the relationship between a central government and regional governments. Okay. So you can look, if we're looking at the theory of federalism from a national level, right? If we're looking at this from a national level, we're looking at how the federal government operates. And so the relationship between the federal government and the states: central government, federal; states, right? Regional, right? States are regional governments inside of our federal government. But let's say our central government is a state. I live in the state of Texas. State of Texas is the central government. What would be the regional governments? What would make up these, right? What would make up these fingers? What would they represent? Demi. Give me 1 second. Counties. Thank you, Marla. Yeah, Demi, I'd overbooked. I had overbooked earlier. And so I sent an email saying that we would meet at 4:30. And again, if it's y'all's first time here today, please, 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 please. I ain't saying leave and stay gone, because I do want you to come back if you're watching this on TikTok. But go to my YouTube. You can just click it right there on my page on TikTok, on YouTube. And when you go to the YouTube, it's going to take you to Pretty Petty Politics. Under the description is a Google form. Complete that Google form so you can be a part of this community. Okay. So again, federalism on the federal level is the federal government and the 50 states. Federalism, if we're dealing with the state, it could be like I live in Texas. The central government would be the state of Texas, and the regional governments would be the counties in Texas. So Texas has more counties than anywhere else in the country. We have 254 counties. 254, right? Now, if I'm talking about the county, I live in Harris County, Texas, what would be considered the regional governments? If the county is the central government, what are the regional governments? Those regional governments would be the cities inside that county. That makes sense? So we just reviewed federalism, right? And right before we reviewed federalism, we went over the first 3 articles to the Constitution, Article 1, 2, and 3. So Article 4, hint, hint, is about what? What I tell you was the definition of federalism. Federalism is the relationship between a central government and regional governments. Now, you can also have federalism between 2 central governments, okay? 2 central governments or 2 regional governments can have 2 regional governments, let's say that 2 regional governments can have a relationship. All right. I'm going to read some of y'all comments because y'all are cracking me up on TikTok. She said, I'm on academic probation. Work been beating me up. You're not on academic probation. You just academic to YouTube and watch them recordings. You'll be caught right on up. All right. So Article 4 is dealing with the relationship between states, federalism, the relationship between central government and regional governments. That is the key when you hear that federalism definition. Regional governments, plural. A central government, singular, and regional governments, plural. So it could be multiple things at one time relating to one central thing, or it can just be 2 regional things relating to one another. So here's an example. I have a driver's license, okay? I have a driver's license, right? How many of you have a driver's license? If you have a driver's license, put beep, beep in the comments, right? Put beep, beep in the comments to signify that you are a driver and you want us to get out your way. Beep, beep. Who got the keys to my Jeep? Right? Beep, beep. And the reason why we're talking about this driver's license is so that we can understand what Article 4 is showing us, because it's really easy to remember Articles 1, 2, and 3. It's really easy to remember those because for many of us, we've been hearing about those since we were yay high, right? But in addition to that, we see those 3, or we hear about those 3 so consistently that it's natural for us to think of them in terms of the Constitution, right? So 1, 2, and 3, legislative, executive, judicial. 4, you can call it federalism, or you can just say the way the states relate to one another, okay? So Section 1 of Article 4, we're going to call that our beep, beep. All right. So we're blowing our horn. Beep, beep. Full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. Now, me reading that to you, which one of those would our driver's license fall under? Would it be an act, a record, or a judicial proceeding? Full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. So that's the relationship. So I have this Texas driver's license. Why does Pennsylvania have to allow me to drive when I'm there visiting? Why does Connecticut have to let me drive, or Virginia, or California, or Chicago? Why would those states have to allow me? If I go to Enterprise, I get off a plane, I go to Enterprise, and I've already booked my reservation for my mid-size car, and they better give me a Toyota so I can be good on gas. They're going to ask for a form of ID. I'm not from Illinois. I live in Texas, and I hand them that Texas driver's license. Why do they have to accept it? And thank you, just 2C's and 2 E's, as well as Valerie on YouTube for the answers. That is correct, because that is a record. That driver's license is a record. All right. So let's pause right quick. If you are enjoying this lecture here in our virtual classroom, before we get into today's big topic, we're doing a bit of a review because we have been going. This is our 9th week. Like, we've been going. Go ahead and please light it up. Share, and share. If you're on YouTube, share, tag somebody if you know them, and tell them to jump on, right? If you're watching this on a recording, please make sure if you're watching this recording later after this live to and make sure that you subscribe to this channel, to Pretty Petty Politics, this platform. So just a little bit about Pretty Petty Politics. Pretty Petty Politics was created in 2018 after my students at the Texas Southern University kept calling me. I had this one girl, she was like, you might be pretty, but you damn sure petty. And all I could do was laugh, because I can be petty. But politics can be that way too. Politics can literally be pretty, the outcomes, or it can be petty. You could just follow along with that, right? And it does not matter who is in power either, when the pretty or the petty shows up. So I took that little nugget, that little love offering from that student, and I jotted it down. That was the spring of 2018. And I started working on my concept for this platform. And so this platform, in general, Pretty Petty Politics, is all about politics. But there is a sub show or a sub platform that is hosted on Pretty Petty Politics. So hosted on this channel, called The Kitchen Cabinet. So you may see The Kitchen Cabinet, or you may see something straight up politically related. But on The Kitchen Cabinet, you may see politics too. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The Kitchen Cabinet merges my love for food and cooking with my love and just relationship or struggleship with politics and government. So cabinet, a play off of the federal cabinet, right? The president has a cabinet, and then kitchen, because I love food. So that's just a little bit about me. So while y'all are giving me those hearts, I want to say thank you. Now let's get back to it, shall we? All right, so we got the first one right. Driver's license is a record. Now we see that first part of how states relate to one another, right? For Article 4. Section 2 is about privileges and immunities, all right? So we hear about privileges and immunities in the amendments, but we see privileges and immunities in the Constitution itself, in Article 4, Section 2. It reads, the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. Each state, the state of Texas, the privileges and immunities that I have as a U.S. citizen residing in Texas, you have those same rights and privileges as a U.S. citizen, although you may reside in Pennsylvania or Ohio or New Jersey or Arkansas, right? Okay, just making sure we're following along. So here's something, we had this example, and y'all tell me the word for this, okay? This is still, we're doing a bit of a review. Sierra Sutton was a Baytown, Texas woman here in Harris County, right? This is 2017. In 2017, she red rummed her live-in boyfriend. She red rummed him by pew pew, and then she took a machete or something and chopped him up. Okay. It's very graphic because I want to get your attention, but it's also very graphic because that's what happened. So she red rummed Steve Coleman. She red rummed him. And if you're wondering, if you're on YouTube, you're like, why is she saying red rum? It's because on TikTok, I can't say MURDER. Okay. So she red rummed him, and then she chopped him up, and she took his body parts and she dumped them after she went shopping to buy stuff to like help her dispose of it. She threw them out in different dumpsters around Baytown. Baytown is a suburb of Houston. She reported him missing, and then she skipped town. Later, a worker at the dump found a torso or a body part, and so an investigation took place, and she became a suspect. And they went to the apartment and found it abandoned, but they also found evidence of a red rum having occurred. People began to report that Sierra Sutton had skipped town and gone to the boot, Louisiana. Okay. Based on a true story, 2017. Having said all of that, what is it called when the district attorney for Harris County, Texas, right? When the district attorney for Harris County, Texas, and the law enforcement here or there in Baytown put out a warrant for the arrest of Sierra Sutton. Who has to honor that arrest warrant? And because she's believed to be in Louisiana, or they have strong evidence that she was in Louisiana, does Louisiana have to turn her over? And why? Let's see if y'all got it. And if you want to come join me on stage on TikTok, you can. I'll just turn up the volume so YouTube can hear you. Anybody? Anybody know what that is? What it's called? I'm looking at both screens to see who's going to say it first. Thank you, Nora. Nora was first. 2 C's and two E's, and Valerie right behind her. Christoph, thank you. Yes, extradition. Louisiana has to extradite her. They have to honor it, right? And that is because the relationship between regional governments, federalism. Okay. Now I know y'all are like, girl, nobody gonna be using these legal terms and that jargon that you're using. And I don't need you to like use the jargon, but I do need you to understand the operation of it and have an understanding and appreciation of it, right? That is important. Okay. Because some of y'all, one of y'all might end up being a sheriff or something, or an elected, well, that's an elected official too, but might be an elected official. So I just want to make sure that we go over this stuff. We're almost done with this review, and then we're going to jump into those 3 amendments so we can wrap up for today. All right. Let's see. Section 3, new states. Okay. New states may be admitted by the Congress. Why does a new state have to be admitted by Congress? Well, hold on. Before we answer that, I have a question on YouTube, and I'm going to put this on the screen. Thank you, Courtney, for your question. If, all caps, if she had disposed of the body parts in both Texas and Louisiana, would she have been charged in Louisiana too, or just Texas, because that's where the initial crime took place? So she could be charged in both, but not the same charges. So for the red rum, the charge would have been in Texas. Okay, the red rum charges were appropriate for Texas, or or are appropriate in Texas, or were appropriate, because that's where she was convicted, because that's where the crime took place. As Section 2 provides, a person charged in any state with treason, felony, or other crime who shall flee from justice, she fled from justice, and be found in another state, shall, on demand of the executive authority of that state from which he or she fled, be delivered up to be removed to the state having jurisdiction of the crime. So the red rum, the underlying crime, the red rum, took place in Texas. So she would be charged in Texas for the red rum. But had she disposed of body parts in Louisiana, she could be charged with a lesser crime of what's the word? Something to do with a corpse, right? I can't think of the verbiage right now, but it would be the abusive, the disposal of a corpse or something like that. So she could be charged there. I don't have the language right now in my head because that jumped out at me, but probably not. But the red rum would definitely be for Texas. And Louisiana could possibly charge her with the corpse. Most places have crimes about how you handle remains. All right. Abuse of a corpse. Thank you. Or unlawful disposal. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't have the words, y'all. I was trying though. All right. So Section 3 is about that minutes of a new state. Why is it that Congress, because this starts off, new states may be admitted by the Congress. Why Congress? And how does that impact the relationship between the other regional governments, right? Congress, which you will find if you go back and you read Article 1, Congress has great, massive power. Massive power. That's why y'all always hear me talk about there are 3 C's in this class that we're going to always use. Congress, I could say 4. Congress, Constitution, commerce, and capitalism. And commerce and capitalism pretty much go together. All right. Congress has so much power. But for some reason, as voters, we don't respect our own power enough to pay attention to Congress. And that's why people be in Congress forever and we don't vote them out, because we don't understand that power. All right. So that's why Congress has so many power, like why Congress is so important. But if we stick to the focus here in Article 4 about Congress having power over lands, Congress has what we call commerce power, COMMERCE, commerce. Commerce is what? Money, 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 money. All right. So in Article 1, I'm going to give you a couple of sections for those of you who are taking notes. For Article 1, Sections 1 and 2 run down like the qualifications and requirements of Congress. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are more about Congress operating inside of Congress or within Congress. But then you get into the powers of Congress, what Congress can do, right? What Congress can do. They have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, excises, to pay debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. They have the power to borrow money on the credit of the United States. Y'all, let me tell y'all something that we do. I don't do it, but we do it. And I'm a part of we as residents of our respective states and citizens of this nation. We do not recognize that our nation is the United States. We just say America. And every time someone does that, it's like somebody scratching the board with their nails. It works me up because I'm like, baby, it's the United States. I know what you mean, but it's the United States. All right. And it's power in those words, United States. So much so, back to the last couple of lectures, when the Civil War, or prior to the Civil War, as the Civil War was heating up, people who did not agree with the Union, the United States is a union of states united, right? You and your husband are united. You and your wife are united. Y'all were united in holy matrimony. Y'all had a union, a wedding, right? A union, right? If y'all split, one leaves, you're no longer apart. There is no more union for the two of you all, right? Y'all broke it. Well, with the Civil War, we had, starting with South Carolina, we had someone break away from the Union, and others also broke away from the Union. When they broke away from the Union, they did not rename themselves United States of America II. They renamed themselves as the United States of the Confederacy. United States of the Confederacy. The point I'm trying to make is not about the Confederacy today, although usually it is. The point I'm making today is the United States. Don't get lost in the sauce, y'all. All right. So Congress can do these things throughout the United States, on the credit of the United States, right? They can regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes to establish a uniform rule of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. Congress can coin money, regulate the value thereof, and foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. Congress is to provide for the punishment of counterfeiting securities and current coin of the United States, to establish post office and post roads, to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries, to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. Tribunals, write that word down. All right. Tribunals. When you hear that word, we're talking about some type of court. All right. To define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas, right? And offenses against the law of nations. To declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. And make rules concerning captures on land and water. What y'all think that is talking about? To raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. To provide and maintain a navy. Y'all, I'm reading all of this from Section 8 of Article 1. And then I'm going to go back to what I was asking y'all about Article 4. And I'm just doing this because we did not read all of this when we went over Article 1. So make sure I read this section to you. To make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces, to provide for calling forth the militia. I'm going to pause right there. The militia. Y'all remember, what's my favorite militia? Anybody remember my favorite militia? In the 1780s, what was my favorite militia? The militia that had them shaking in their boots and made them say, hey, we need to rewrite this Constitution because of the militia. Yes, Shay, Daniel Shay, Shay, Daniel Shay. Him and them other farmers was like, bull crap. We're not doing that today. All right. Shay's Rebellion. Yes. Shay's Rebellion. Y'all give me a second. Shay's Rebellion. Okay. To provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress. Oh gosh. I told you I could be petty, right? To provide forth, calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union. The Union, what is the Union, y'all? See, language matters, and we've gotten away from language because of revisionists who offered us an alternative history, such as the North versus the South. They took away language, but we have to use the language so we can keep things in perspective. All right. To execute the laws of the Union, comma, and this is where I'm being petty. Y'all thought I was talking about that, but I'm really talking about this. Suppress insurrection and repel invasions. Congress did not do a good job with insurrection, not in 2021. I'm just saying. To provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. Now that right there, that point, and in this copy, I haven't numbered them, but that point right there is like your guards. Okay, that's like your guards. All right. Let's see. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square as may by session of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of government in the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings, and to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or any department or officer thereof. So when we go back to Article 4, and I ask you all about why is it no state shall be formed unless there is congressional, unless Congress says okay. Right? Now the Constitution, Question 70, I was reading from the Constitution of the United States, Article 1 of the Constitution, Section 8 of Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. That's what I was reading. All right. And if you're new here, welcome, 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 welcome. This is Federal Government. This is week 9. If you would like the course materials and you want to be a part of this community, please register for the course by going to the YouTube on my TikTok page, or if you're on TikTok already, go into the description, just clicking that Google form. Oh, yes, I know it very well, young lady. Thank you, because they don't know. Oh, so this is a community and where we learn. And so it doesn't matter if we don't know, because we have the opportunity to learn. So we welcome you to be here. But yeah, the Constitution is our textbook. So in general, anything that we're reading in here, when it's in class mode, when I'm in class mode, is definitely going to be from the U.S. Constitution or from some legislation or law that is based on the Constitution of the United States. Okay. All right. So I just want to clear that up. But thank you. Thank you for being here. So new states may be admitted by the Congress into this union, but no new state shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state, nor any state be formed by the junction, meaning to the junction of two or more states or parts of states without the consent of the legislatures of those states concerned, as well as the Congress. So the reason why I went back and read those powers of Congress is so that when you see Section 3 of Article 4, you understand why Congress has that involvement, because I've already told you Congress has power over the lands, but it's not just the lands. So it's the dockyards, it's the ports, it's also those national parks. Okay. It's also those national parks. So let's say there is a moose at a national park. Who owns that moose? Someone owns that moose. That moose is owned by the United States government. Who has power over what happens to that moose? The U.S. Congress. Okay. So we've all learned some good stuff today so far. We're just heating up. We have about 35 more minutes to go. So in 5 minutes, we're going to pivot over. So we've done our review. We're digging into the Constitution more, even though we've gone through what each article represents in previous weeks. We're going back into them, digging in deeper for greater understanding, right? But in a few minutes, we're going to go ahead and get into today's specific lecture about those 3 Reconstruction Amendments and how they show up in landmark cases. All right. So Article 4, Section 3 also provides Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting territory or other property belonging to the United States. That's why I gave you the example of the moose. That's other property belonging to the United States. And nothing in this Constitution shall be so construed as to prejudice any claims of the United States or of any particular state. All right. Language I want you to put in your notes for today. What is a republic? What is a democracy? And what is a union? Because all 3 of those terms can define individually, they can define who we are as the United States of America. They can be used interchangeably to describe the United States of America. Union, democracy, republic. So you may hear someone say Republican or Democratic, and they're not talking about political parties. That's why context matters. CONTEXT, not contact. I smell your weed. Ooh, I smell your weed. Not contact, but context, right? So sometimes we hear Republican and Democratic and we think political parties, but Republican form of government, Democratic form of government is not related to political parties. But we have to learn that. So we need to learn it, understanding what a republic is, what a democracy is, and what the union is. So those are the 3 words I want you to put in your notes for today and go and dig in. What is not the, but a republic? What is a democracy? Okay. All right. So Article 5, now we're where I want to get us so that we can get to today's lecture. Anybody remember what Article 5 provides? What does Article 5 provide? without me reading it. What does Article 5 provide? And if you're just joining us, welcome. This is federal government class. We meet weekly. Typically, we meet like 10:30 in the morning, but child, life be life, and so you have to pivot. And thank you, Courtney. Amendments, that's Article 5, how we get to our amendments. Article 5, the process of creating an amendment. All right, the process of creating an amendment. So for those of you just joining us, I'm going to show you how we make an amendment. All right, y'all ready? Y'all see this big gold hoop here? I love these earrings, by the way. This big gold earring. So I'm going to take it off. You see this pretty brown ear? This ear is the Constitution. The ear, the Constitution. Everybody got that? My ear is the Constitution. My earring, I'm getting ready to amend my ear, the Constitution. I'm going to amend the Constitution. So Congress is the legislature. They legislate right. All right. They write laws. So Congress has written a new law and they call it Amendment Gold Hoop. And this, okay, Gold Hoop. Y'all give me a number. The 29th Amendment. All right. So Congress passes the 29th Amendment. Everybody got that? Congress passes the 29th Amendment. It's passed. It's there. But it's not official yet. It's not locked in. It's not locked in. Congress has to wait on the several states, 2/3 of them, to ratify the amendment before it becomes official. Now it's locked in. The earring back, when I slid that on, take it off again. The earring back is the ratification. That means it's locked in. That means now it is officially an amendment of the United States Constitution. All right. And we get that. Yes, add to. Thank you, Demi. We get that. I don't know. Something just happened. I had 2 restrictions pop up. I don't know what that's about when we're talking about amendment, but whatever. We get that from Article 5. So I'm going to review this. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses. So in Congress, we have 2 chambers. We have a bicameral. I'm giving you language. I know y'all not in school for real. Some of y'all might be. But for the purpose of understanding, or if you need to tutor your child or your grandchild, you need to help them with homework, your niece, nephew, mentee, whatever, and you're going over government, we have a bicameral legislature, a bicameral. Bi means 2, right? We have a bicameral legislature. It's made up of 2 chambers. The first and the largest is the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives has 435 voting members, okay? And then we have the U.S. Senate. So the United States House of Representatives, the United States Senate. The United States Senate is the smaller of the 2 chambers, and it has 100 members. So in total, we have 535 members of Congress. Together, the House and the Senate make Congress, okay? So where it says in Article 5, the Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, so 2/3 must deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution. Again, the Constitution is the preamble, 7 articles, and some signatures, okay? Where was I? Shall propose amendments to this Constitution or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the states, right? So 2/3 of the states can call for a constitutional convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution when ratified by the legislatures. So let's say Congress wants to create a new amendment. Congress can do that, right? But then 3/4 of the states must approve it. All right. But let's say we have some states that want to make changes. You need 2/3 of the states to come together and agree, and that will, I don't want to say the T word, TRIGG word, that will cause or force a convention. All right. A convention for proposing amendments to the Constitution. Okay. Everybody got that? Either way, whether it's Congress that wants to do it or 2/3 of the state legislatures, TURES, legislatures, whether it's the states or the Congress that want to make the addition, whether it's the Congress or the states that want to do it, the only way it gets ratified, right? The only way it gets ratified, gets locked in, is when 3/4 of the several states. So how many states do we have? We have 50 states. So 3/4 of the states must vote for that ratification, must pass that, vote affirmatively to cause that law to be ratified. Hopefully that makes sense. Nora, I don't know what you mean. Could you give me a little bit more language? She says, what about the 2 territories? I need to know what you mean by that, mama. All right. All right. So as soon as I can answer her question, we're going to move on and we're going to get into our amendments for today. I wanted to make sure we got to Article 5, though. Nor territories are not states. Territories are not states, so they don't have the same privileges in them. Well, not, I don't want to say privileges and immunities because that's the wrong term. They don't have the same vote or input as a state. Remember, the nation is called the United States of America. As the United States of America, we have colonized other places throughout the globe, including Puerto Rico and Guam. The Philippines has been colonized by the United States. Like, there are different areas, different islands, right? But they are not states, so they would not participate in that vote concerning the Constitution. Now, however, they do have delegates that represent them in the Congress, so they could speak and try to like encourage people, hey, think of us, right? Because ultimately, whatever the amendments are, those changes to the Constitution through an amendment, they will still be impacted by it because they are a territory of the United States. That means they're under the laws of the United States in terms of the Constitution. All right. Thank you so much for that question. That's a really good question. So as we pivot, that's a good way to put it, but not lobby. It's a little bit closer because they're in the room, and they don't nearly have as much power as lobbyists, because lobbyists be having long money, but that's a good way of looking at it. Okay. So think of the United States Virgin Islands, right? Those places, those territories, they do have a delegate that represents them in the Congress. Remember, Congress is over any lands that the United States may own, including those territories, those public parks, or those national parks, those federal buildings. certain bases, arsenals around the nation. All right. And not, when I say around the nation, I don't just mean in the physical United States, the 50 states, but also a base in Guam or a base in Germany, right? Okay, so now we have made it to our 3 amendments for today. So our 3 amendments for today are the 13th, 14th, and 15th, but we're looking at them in terms of landmark cases, how they impact landmark cases. So one of the cases I want to talk about that is a landmark case that we've all heard of. I want you, and please, if you want to come on camera, please, if you want to join the conversation verbally, that's fine on TikTok. But I'm going to name a case, and I want you to tell me which of those 3 amendments do you think is applicable? All right. So this case was passed in 2015, and this case was about marriage, same-sex marriage. Okay, same-sex marriage. So it's coming up on 10 years that case. So Obergefell versus Hodges is the name of the case. Which of those 3 Reconstruction era amendments was that decision made constitutional based on? Like, which of those 3 did the Supreme Court rely on to justify its constitutionality? Which one? Which of the three Reconstruction Amendments, 13th, 14th, and 15th, did the court rely on as they made their decision related to same-sex marriage? That's question number 1. Let's see if y'all got it. Ooh, it's going slow. Thank you, Brandy. Brandy got it. The 14th, Daughter White 1221, the 14th Amendment. All right, so we're going to talk about the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment provides equal protection under the laws. All right, equal protection under the laws is one of the highlights of Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. Now, the 14th Amendment has 5 sections. Generally, when involved in litigation, so the 14th Amendment is argued in more cases than any other amendment. The 14th Amendment is super duper important and powerful, okay? Because it's like a pineapple. You know, a pineapple has so many resources. A pineapple could be a weapon. So it's for safety. When you look at a pineapple, I call the 14th Amendment the Pineapple Amendment. I've used that as an example. I don't think I've really done it this school year in class, but certainly in the past, I use that as an example. And here's why. A pineapple has a lot of, it's sharp, right? The spikes along the body of it, right? And the leaves are even sharp, right? So it's a protector. The 14th Amendment is like that. It's a protector. It's a protector of citizens and persons. It's a protector, the 14th Amendment. I'm going to read Section 1 in a moment. It's also good for you. The 14th Amendment is good for you, but also a pineapple is good for you. Why is a pineapple good for you? It's a great source of what? Vitamin C. It's packed with vitamins, right? And it has enzymes in it that are really good for you, especially like if you're getting sick, like congestion or sore throat. Like pineapple is good for you because of those enzymes, or like if you're getting a cold, because of those enzymes, plus it's packed with vitamins. Another attribute about a pineapple is it's sticky. right? So the same way there are a lot of vitamins in a pineapple, there are a lot of vitamins, legal vitamins in the 14th Amendment. In the same way, a pineapple texture, like when you touch a pineapple and you try to touch something else, it's going to be sticky. So what it attaches to, it impacts it. So it leaves its residue, a sticky residue. The 14th Amendment is that same way. It sticks to so many things. So many things are, how can I put it? Are applicable to what the 14th Amendment provides. Okay. So when looking at Section 1, because that's what I'm talking about right now. And in general, in this course, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the 14th Amendment, although we could talk about sections 2, 3, 4, and 5. But Section 1, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall abridge the privileges, we talked about this in Article 2, the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, semicolon, nor shall any state deprive any person, notice we just said person, not citizen, any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, semicolon, nor to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. All right, so when I asked you about Obergefell versus Hodges, and you all responded to 14th Amendment, you're responding to 14th Amendment because of those last 2 points, okay? Now, Obergefell, same-sex marriage, how did that case come about? Let's talk about it a little bit, right? Because what I've learned is when we talk about things, whether it's you're a part of the community or if you're just trying to explain things because you know you may be against something, you may be a part of something, or maybe you just observing, like, let's look at what it is, okay? And that's where I'm at. I'm just looking at what it is. I don't have a dog in the fight. I am a heterosexual Black woman. I don't have a dog in that fight. But I do have a dog in that fight because I understand the power of the 14th Amendment and the applicability, that stickiness of the 14th Amendment, because I don't want to pick and choose who gets the benefit from the 14th Amendment, because it literally says all persons. Like, and we have to ask ourselves, why would this Congress, of course, I know they were not thinking about homosexuals. They weren't thinking about nobody for real. Well, they weren't. They were thinking about Black people. Black people. But it was in response to what had happened to Black people in this country. Now that is real. But let's talk about it. In 1868, when this was ratified by 3/4 of the states, okay, it was passed in 1866 by Congress. Remember, Congress is the hoop, the earring back is the states, okay? So when it was passed by Congress in 1866 and later ratified July 8, 1868, they used this language. This is the language that they used and they adopted. They adopted this language that I just read, okay? And so when we look at the U.S. Constitution, the legislature writes laws. The courts, the federal courts, interpret laws, okay? The federal courts interpret laws. And so several years ago, what's this man's name? Give me a second. Obergefell, and I pronounce his name all kind of ways. So you might hear me say Obergefell. It just depends on the day of the week, right? But when trying to get to it, what happened was there were two partners that had been together for years, and one of them got really sick and was basically going to pass away. And because, they knew it was going to happen, not when it was going to happen, but the likelihood of it was going to happen, there were certain things they couldn't do because they were not married. Like, certain laws are like insurance and inheritance and all of that can get really sticky. I'm trying to do too many things at once. That can get really sticky. So their objective was to marry. And at the time, marriage was defined under the Defense of Marriage Act passed by the Clinton administration. Okay. Y'all got that? The Defense of Marriage Act, I almost said definition of marriage. The Defense of Marriage Act was passed under the Clinton administration. And the Defense of Marriage Act defined marriage as that between a man and a woman. That was an act. Who passes acts? Who passes acts? Which branch of government passes acts? Which branch of government passes acts? The legislature, the federal legislature, right? So in the 90s, the federal legislature was like, we define a marriage between a man and a woman, right? Congress, an act of Congress, the Defense DOMA, D-O-M-A, DOMA. That's what it was called, DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act, right? And then in 2015, the Supreme Court, and in a landmark decision, the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, ruled that same-sex marriage would be legal in the United States. Okay, so I'm going to provide some of this to you. Through its ruling in Obergefell versus Hodges 2015, the Supreme Court, by a 5-4 vote, legalized same-sex marriage in all states. At issue in the case was whether the 14th Amendment's due process, that's why I read the 14th Amendment, Section 1 to you, due process and equal protection clauses prevent states from banning marriages between individuals of same sex. The Supreme Court's majority concluded that a ban on same-sex marriage violated the 14th Amendment. The court said the Constitution promises liberty to all within its reach. And it does, because it says to what kind of person? When I read Section 1 of Section 1 of the 14th Amendment to you, what kind of person has a right to due process and equal protection? Yeah, I was very specific. Anybody? Any person. It literally says any person. Any person. It does not say citizen. It says any person, meaning all people. Okay. All right. Including gay people, including those who love the same sex, same gender loving. That's what it's not a matter of your own personal feelings, because the first day of law school, they taught me, and they teach probably every other person that go to law school. The first day of law school, they tell you the law has no feelings. So it ain't about how you feel about a thing. It's about what does that document say, and then it's left up to the courts to interpret it. But because the 14th Amendment is so like just, they was in their bag when they wrote that 14th Amendment, baby. When they wrote Section 1 of that 14th Amendment, it was just like, doop, 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 like they were in their bed. And so it's on its face, you can see that it would be unconstitutional to restrict people from marrying based on their gender preference. And the reason why I say on its face it would be unconstitutional is because the privileges and not privileges and immunities, the due process, the right to due process, life, liberty, like liberty. What is liberty? You can't skip over what is provided in the Constitution, right? So the 14th Amendment says, nor shall any state, so Texas, Tennessee, Florida, Arkansas, California, Utah, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, semicolon, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal, keyword, equal protections of the law. All right. And oftentimes you'll hear people say under the law, equal protection under the law, but the word is of the law, but people do say under the law, and I understand why. All right. Today, like, I would not be surprised, and I've been saying this probably for the past 5 years, I would not be surprised if we see the reversal of Obergefell versus Hodges, depending on what happens with the Supreme Court, meaning the balance of the Supreme Court. Like, if it grows any more one way, it's more likely to shift that decision, meaning overturn that decision, because the litigation is already in the pipeline to challenge Obergefell versus Hodges. Okay. Everybody got that? All right. So y'all real quiet with this one. It's okay. Now, why is this significant? Well, they were, again, they had been together. They had been partners for a long time. I don't even think they were interested. If I remember correctly, they weren't even interested in getting married initially, but they understood, they came to that realization that there's safety in marriage, right? There's some legal safeties with marriage. And so they challenged Ohio. They were an Ohio couple. They challenged their state law regarding marriage because Ohio did not allow for same-sex marriage. Massachusetts was the first state to have same-sex marriage, and then a few others had it. And so they flew from Ohio to the East Coast, I want to say to Maryland, and got married on the tarmac, because once you're in if it's legal in that jurisdiction and you can get married in that jurisdiction, and now you have a marriage, now you have a case, a claim to state. So when they flew back home, they wanted to be acknowledged as married for the legal purposes, because again, they had some things going on with one of the spouses, health-wise, and this would provide them some legal safety in terms of end-of-life decision-making, insurances, I don't know, probably not power of attorney, but we can throw that in there. So they had some decisions to make. And so the state of Ohio was like, no, we're not recognizing that. Nope, we sure are not. And they were like, okay, cool, bet. That's all we needed. We needed you to deny our marriage, deny observing our marriage, which takes us back to Article 4. Remember, federalism, all the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of the several states, right? So now you have Ohio not wanting to acknowledge a record of another state. A marriage license, like your driver's license, is a record. So because Ohio would not acknowledge that other states' marriage license that they had secured legally, right? Now they have a claim. They have a claim that they can make in federal court against the state for denying them their 14th Amendment right or rights of due process and equal protection. And so they took that case to the U.S. Supreme Court. And in 2015, the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, ruled that it was constitutional. It was unconstitutional to deny them the right to marry. All right. Supreme Court also said this regarding the issue of whether state legislatures have the power to ban such marriages. The court, meaning the Supreme Court, held that fundamental rights may not be submitted to a vote. So the United States Supreme Court has held marriage as a fundamental right since, and now we're going to pivot to another case, another landmark case. So you ready for the second case? The second case, put love in the chat. Love in the chat. Okay. Love in the chat. Put love in the chat, please. Make sure you share this live. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube watching this, make sure you subscribe. All right. So we got love. So we still talking marriage. We ain't got no baby carriage, do we? But no, we're still talking marriage right now. And so as we talk marriage, we're talking about love because these folks be in love, right? And they want to share that love under the protection of marriage, the covenant, the protection of marriage. All right. So marriage, love, 1967. All right, that's the year we're going to. All right. Love. So this case was about interracial marriage. What's the name of this case? See if y'all remember. 1967. What's the name of this case? Yes, Courtney, Loving versus Virginia. Thank you, Demi, on YouTube. Loving versus Virginia. I mean, on TikTok. Loving versus Virginia. So this case, again, another marriage case, is looking at the 14th Amendment. Okay, the 14th Amendment. Again, that is the most litigated amendment in the courts, the 14th Amendment. All right, so the state of Virginia had a law which prohibited white residents from marrying a person of a different race. When Richard Loving, a white man, and Mildred Jeter, or Jeter, depending on where you're from, a woman of African American and Native American descent, which most people in Virginia are, went to Washington, D.C. to get married and then returned home to Virginia. Police invaded their home and arrested them. So in their home state of Virginia, they were not allowed to get married. So they skipped to the Louvre, up the road to Washington, D.C., not far away. They went up to D.C. They got married in the nation's capital, where it was available for them to marry, and then they returned home to Virginia. And when they got back to Virginia, they were arrested. The state of Virginia claimed that its ban on interracial marriage did not violate the Equal Protection Clause because the penalty for the offense, a prison sentence of 1 to 5 years, was the same for whether you were white or black, or if you were something else and you were white and you were marrying somebody who wasn't white. It didn't matter. Both of y'all could get the same time. So Virginia was like, oh, it's equal. We're going to give them equal time. And the court was like, bro, stop playing. Stop playing. All right. The Supreme Court ruled saying that the Virginia law was subversive of the principle of equality at the heart of the 14th Amendment. The court concluded that the law was based solely on racial discrimination and that any such classification was unconstitutional. So again, they made this decision based on the 14th Amendment, equal protection of the law. right? All right. So, got another one. All right. We got another one. We're going to stick with marriage a little bit. All right. We're going to stick with marriage a little bit. No, you know what? I'm a pivot. I'm a pivot from marriage. I'm gonna shake it up a little bit. All right. I'm gonna shake it up a little bit. This case, Brown versus Board of Education. I'm gonna go ahead and give you the case. Why was Brown versus Board of Education? Which one of those Reconstruction Amendments was used in the Brown versus Board of Education decision? That was a decision about segregation. Anybody? I got the 13th Amendment. Brown versus Board of Education. Any other amendments? Any other amendments? I got the 15th Amendment. Brown versus Board of Education. Why was it the 14th? Why y'all saying the 14th Amendment? Equal protection. The 14th Amendment is the correct amendment. The Supreme Court ruled that school segregation is unconstitutional because it violated the 14th Amendment guarantee of equal protection under the law to all citizens. This opinion became the legal basis on which public schools throughout the South were ordered by lower courts to end their policy of racial segregation. And in response to that, you had kids having to go to school with escorts, such as the U.S. Marshals escorting them. Kids, such as 5-year-old Ruby Bridges, who is alive today with a whole Instagram page. Like, for some people, it's like, oh, this was just one lifetime ago. For some people, it's still their lifetime. They're still here with us. Just as pretty as she can be, Ruby Bridges. Right? So the 14th Amendment is pineapple. Pineapple. And I ain't talking Kevin Hart, right? It's because of the violation of the Equal Protection Clause that the landmark decision of Brown versus Board of Education was successful. Okay. That decision relied heavily on the 14th Amendment. Okay. The 14th Amendment. It's like, I'm about to do something funny. Hold on. You see how old school y'all are. If you ever been sick and somebody handed you one of these, they gave you some ginger ale because your stomach was upset. That's the 14th Amendment. It just fixes things. It fixes things, right? So Valerie put in there, cannot deprive a person of life, liberty, or property. Okay. So just making sure that this is resonating, y'all. We got a few more minutes and we will be done for today. All right. We will be done for today. Now, another landmark case. We've done 3, 2 marriage, 1 on segregation. Let's stop there. So those will be our 3 landmark cases. Those are our 3 landmark cases for today. to marriage and segregation. All right. These three cases, 1954, 1967, and 2015, all three of them are at risk of being overturned here in 2025. And I said what I said. I said what I said. All right. Okay. So, sorry. All right, a little bit more review, and then I'm gonna let y'all go. I want you all to take some time and familiarize yourselves with the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment is also one of those amendments that shifts things in the Supreme Court. Some very big decisions have been made based on the Fourth Amendment as well as the First Amendment, because these are where we get some of those underlying rights, right? Those rights provided to us in the Bill of Rights. Amendments that we see today argued so often, they are argued so often because people see just how applicable they are. And so the violations of them are very evident. It's very obvious. And so you just need to convince the court to rule with you. Someone said Roe was the test. I don't know if Roe was the test. I would say, and this one wasn't even based on amendments. The test was actually Shelby versus Holder, which would take us to the 15th Amendment. But remember, I stopped for today. Shelby versus Holder 2013 was the test. Even though it did not overturn a case, it did overturn an act, a part of an act of Congress that was a part of a series of laws, both amendments and acts that came through Congress during the 1960s. Okay. Shelby versus Holder, SHELBY versus Holder. I thought I talked about this one a couple of weeks ago, and maybe not. Shelby versus Holder, meaning Eric Holder, former Attorney General of the United States during the Obama administration. 2013, this case came out of Alabama, Shelby County, Alabama, which is suburb of Birmingham, Alabama. So it's just south of Birmingham, down 65, Interstate 65. It adjoins, right? It shares a county line, Jefferson County, where Birmingham is, and then Shelby County. Shelby County challenged a part of the Voter Rights Act that put restrictions on certain locations around the country, certain counties that had a history and a reputation of basically not doing things fairly on the basis of race when it came to voting. So they may have had certain practices that they enforced that made barriers or created barriers to voting. And so they were successful in overturning or coming from under that penalty, so to speak, through that case. And I don't have my notes prepared for that, so I'm just going off the dome. Coming from not Civil Rights Act, the Voter Rights Act. And so in the decision in Shelby versus Holder, I don't remember what that decision was. I don't know if it was 5-4 or if it was closer than that. Like if the majority had more than that. Hold on, let me see. But in that case, that 2013 case, what happened immediately thereafter, since you said a test was the test, Roe wasn't the test. Roe is just Roe. But immediately thereafter, Shelby, what we saw across the country and other states, including the state I reside in now, Texas, we saw where state legislatures rushed to pass legislation to create restrictions to voting, primarily voter ID laws. Okay, primarily voter ID laws. Those were not required prior to Shelby versus Holder, 2013, right? And in fact, in Alabama itself, after Shelby versus Holder happened, the governor, Robert Bentley, ordered an audit of the DMVs around the state. So Shelby versus Holder takes place. That means they came up from under the Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act. That's what it was. They came from up under that section, which required government oversight in how they ran their elections, because they had a history of not running them so fairly. So with that case taking place, it took them from under, with the decision in that case, it took them from under Section 4 of the Voter Rights Act, right? And so immediately thereafter, you had all these states pass voter ID laws, including Alabama. So after they passed the voter ID law, like a little while later, then the governor, the former governor, Robert Bentley, he ordered an audit of all of the DMVs, particularly focused on a certain area of the state. So when that happened, I mean, they audited all, I guess most of them. I won't say all, but they audited a lot of them. The evaluation, or that feasibility report, right? Whether you call it a feasibility report or whatever, or an audit, it really didn't show that it would make a difference whether or not with what was happening in those, like were they needed. So it wasn't a necessity to close them. It wasn't a necessity to close those DMVs, but it was advantageous to Robert Bentley to order the closure. And I'm going to tell you why. It was advantageous to Robert Bentley to close those DMVs in a particular part of the state of Alabama following the decision of Shelby versus Holder and the establishment of voter ID laws in Alabama. And that advantage was that it would reduce the number of registered voters in the Black Belt. Okay, in the Black Belt. Okay, that's an area of Alabama, the Black Belt. So I just want to look at this real quick. I'm pulling something up. I just want to see what the court decision was. 5-4. That's what I thought. So in a 5-4 decision, so that was another close decision. It wasn't unanimous, like Loving versus Virginia, all nine justices, right? But in Shelby, it was 5-4. Okay. Real close. So it was straight down conservative liberal judges, right? So voter ID laws are now established. Now, here's a question. Why would you require a birth certificate to get a driver's license? Why would you make that a law today? Why would a legislature in the year of 2025, where voter ID laws are already established in that state, why would that state now say your ID is not enough? If you're going to register, you're going to have a birth certificate. What are we seeing happening? Anybody? Let's see what YouTube has in the notes. To show citizenship, Demi. Okay. I'm going to let you have that one. Because that is the answer, to show citizenship. So, because driver's license do not prove citizenship. But if I'm requiring you Oh, there we go, Brandy. It creates barriers to people obtaining voter registration. Now, there are a group of people in this country that vote at a higher rate than anyone else. I call them the old folks. People over 70 years old, we'll say 60 and up, but really 70 and up, they vote at the highest rate for their age group, not the highest number, but the highest rate, right? Old folks gonna vote. If they don't do nothing else, they're gonna talk SHIT and they gonna vote, right? Now, for a lot of Black folks in particular, I'm Black, so I'm gonna talk about Black folks. There's a time in our nation's history where they were not born in hospitals, right? So they may have been born to not doulas. What do you call them? Dang it, it was on the tip of my tongue and I lost my train of thought because somebody started laughing in the chat. Oh, Demi. Oh gosh, not doulas. What's the other word? Midwife. Thank you, Demi. She redeemed herself. Midwife, right? They were born to midwives, and so for some people, they don't have a birth certificate record, and a lot of families find this out at the most inopportune times, like getting ready to take a family cruise and find out Mima or Papa don't have a birth certificate, and they've worked the whole career to collected Social Security. Like, you know, they are a citizen, right? But they don't have a birth certificate. And it's because of the history of our nation, right? The way governments have operated, the way governments have allowed facilities to discriminate. Hospitals used to discriminate, right? And so you could be about to give birth, have a baby, but the colored hospital is further away and you can't come up in here and have this baby. So you're going to have that baby somewhere, but not up in here. And it's going to be born through the assistance of a midwife. And we didn't have technology and all that stuff that we have today. So are people still around who are U.S. citizens born here that do not have birth certificates? Absolutely. Some people born in modern times don't have their birth certificates. And that's because, and I think the two are connected. They don't have their own birth certificates because their parents hold on to their birth certificates for dear life, right? A lot of grown folks, fully grown folks, don't have their original birth certificate. They have a copy of their original birth certificate. That's an official copy that they got from the Office of Human Health Services or something like that in their county where they were born. So they have an official record of it, but they don't have that original copy because they mama hold it like it's hers. And the reason why I think a lot of our parents or our parents' parents hold on for dear life to their children's birth certificates is because of the history of previous generations not being given birth certificates. I think it's almost a psychological, like it's psychological because of the experience. So based on my experience, I'm gonna go about this a different way. All right. Sharon in the chat says, I have the originals. My grown sons had to get theirs. So even today, and I don't know how old Sharon is, but she ain't giving them up. She's not giving up them papers, right? She's not giving up them papers. Norgery Johnson says you don't want them to lose it. I get it. You don't trust us to keep up with that paperwork. Me at my big old age, I still do not have the original birth certificate copy of my birth certificate, the one, the real one, the one that came straight from the hospital. I still don't have that one. And it's because, my mom hasn't given it to me. Now, have I gone to the county and gotten copies of it? Absolutely. Now, what happens if someone lives in one state? So this is the barrier. Here go the barriers. This is where it becomes an economic, almost like a poll tax. It becomes an economic barrier to people because we have the freedom to travel, because it doesn't matter which state you live in, you're still a citizen. So you can move from one place to the next. And so I cannot go to Harris County here in Texas and ask for a copy of my birth certificate because I was born in Florida. They don't have a copy of it here in Harris County. So with this new law, it could become an issue unless I have the ability to travel to go get a copy myself, right? Or I have the funds to pay for a copy to be sent to me, because you do have to purchase them. And so for us who have privilege, who have means, sometimes we see through our own lenses and we don't understand how it can be a barrier to someone else because we don't have those same challenges. We live in an urban area, not in a rural area in a county. We have transportation. We're not relying on somebody to come pick us up. So it's those things, right? And so all of these things come back around together. So when I say Shelby versus Holder set this thing off, we're still seeing the residuals of that decision, that 2013 decision. So that's been 12 years since Shelby versus Holder was decided. We're seeing those residuals still impacting people today. So I just want to read a little bit about Shelby versus Holder, and then I'm going to take questions and we'll be done. The 14th Amendment protects every person's right to due process of law. The 15th Amendment protects citizens from having their right to vote abridged, that means diminished, abridged or denied due to race, color, or previous condition of servitude. The 10th Amendment reserves all rights not granted to the federal government to the individual states. Article 4 of the Constitution guarantees the right of self-government for each state. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 was enacted as a response to the nearly century-long, remember, because the 15th Amendment, the voting right, the right to vote passed in 1870. So the nearly century-long history of voting discrimination. Section 5 prohibits eligible districts from enacting changes to their election laws and procedures without gaining official authorization. Section 4B defines the eligible districts as ones that had a voting test in place as of November 1st, 1964, and less than 50% turnout for that 1964 presidential election. So you had this barrier, right? You had a voting test, and less than half of your voters actually participated in a presidential voting election, all right? Such districts must prove to the Attorney General. So the Attorney General changes with every administration. Sometimes it changes during an administration, or a 3-judge panel of a Washington, D.C. district court, that the change, meaning that if they want to make a change, it neither has the purpose nor will have the effect of negatively impacting any individual's right to vote based on race or minority status. Section 5 was originally enacted for 5 years, but has been continually renewed since that time. So let's deal with that first. So in 1965, the President of the United States was Lyndon B. Johnson, followed by Richard Nixon, followed by Gerald Ford, followed by Jimmy Carter, followed by Ronald Reagan, followed by Bill Clinton, followed by George Bush, followed by Barack Obama. So 8 administrations. All right. Section 5 existed under 8 administrations. 7 of them renewed it. Okay. Because the first generation didn't have to renew it because Lyndon B. Johnson was already president. So 7. Did I leave out Bush? I left off Bush. So 8. So it's a total of 9. That's what you tell them. Let's do it again. Johnson. Not that I don't believe you, but I just want to be right. Johnson, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, you're right. Bush, Clinton, Bush again, you're right. Obama. So 8 of them renewed it. 8 presidents renewed Section 5. Okay. 8 of them renewed it. Okay. continually renewed. So it had been continuously renewed at least 7 to 8 times. Okay, because I have to remember the only president in, well, Nixon too. But arguably about six, let's just say 6 to 8 times it was renewed. Okay. But over the course of 8 administrations, not counting Lyndon B. Johnson because it was enacted under his administration or during his administration. And thank you, Demi, for throwing in 41. Thank you for that. All right. Shelby County, Alabama filed suit in district court and sought both a declaratory judgment that Section 5 and Section 4B were unconstitutional and a permanent injunction against their enforcement. The district court upheld the constitutionality of the sections and granted summary judgment for the attorney general. Remember, you could only do changes if granted by the attorney general or the three judge panel court of the DC circuit, district court circuit, right? The attorney general is who they sued, Eric Holder, thus Shelby County, Alabama versus Eric Holder. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit held that Congress did not exceed its power by reauthorizing Section 5 and that Section 4B is still relevant to the issue of voting discrimination. So now let's look at this. If we look at how many Congresses passed, so we looked at how many administrations it was renewed under, but when we look at how many Congresses renewed it, start with 66. So 66 to 2012, because you get a Congress changes every 2 years. So like we're in the 119th Congress right now. The 120th Congress will start in 2027. Okay. So just keep all that in mind. All right. So the court asked, does the renewal of Section 5 of the Voters' Right Act under the constraints of Section 4B exceed Congress's authority under the 14th and 15th Amendments and therefore violate the 10th Amendment and Article 4 of the Constitution? And in a 5-4 decision, the court said yes. Okay. And Chief Justice John Roberts delivered the decision in that case. All right. So there you have it. And so when asked about what set off the precedents and someone said Roe, and I was like, no, it was probably Shelby, we can see the residuals of that today, right? Because the goalposts keep getting moved. First is ID, a state ID. There's specific state IDs that are acceptable. Some state IDs are not acceptable. Like a college student at a state institution cannot use that state issued identification card from that university or college in which they are enrolled. They cannot use that to vote, even though it is a state issued ID, and it's because it's not one of the specific ones listed, right? So that creates a barrier. That means they have to go get a state issued ID or they have to purchase a passport. Now, I vote my passport and I love to do it because I like to see them frown up. I'm like, they just get so mad. All right. So I understand citizenship. So that's the other reason why I use my passport too, because it's like uno, draw four. All right. So hopefully today this was a good lecture for you. You enjoyed it. We're an hour, almost 50 minutes in. So we have about 11 minutes remaining. Are there any questions? Any questions today? Any questions today? For those of you who got the email, I put in there, if you haven't checked it yet, I put in there something about the book club. Or the book review, make sure you respond. If you're interested, respond in the email, because I will be sending out a separate email just to those people who are interested, so we can keep it very tight in community. All right. All right. Doesn't look like you all have any questions. I'm supposed to be going somewhere, but I don't think I'm going to make it because it's already 6:30. I'm supposed to be there at 7. If they overturn Obergefell or Loving, what happens to all the current marriages? Oh, that's a good question, Courtney. Great question. Great question. I don't know. One would think that hopefully they would just grandfather those persons in. But because I know better, I think those marriages would no longer be deemed legal. Unfortunately. Now think about how many families that would impact across this nation. All right. Brandy, why would you ask me that? She said, what happens to Clarence Thomas's marriage? Oh my gosh, I can't stand y'all. Oh my gosh. She asked me. Oh. They would have an argument because it was legal at the time. Ah. I'm glad I got y'all thinking. I feel like the more we look at the precedents and we look at how the courts have applied laws, I know you got some folks ignoring the courts. I am very aware. But I think the more that we learn just the foundation of the Constitution, the history of the how and the when, and then we look at how the courts have interpreted various parts of the Constitution over time. I think what that does is it should calm your nervous system in terms, not that you don't be on 12 still, but I think it calms your nervous system and it allows you to really focus and dissect and navigate better what all that you may see happening around the nation, right? It helps you look at things with clear lens, right? Your lens are not dirty like mine are right now. You're able to see clearer. And so when you can see clear, you can interpret clear, you can think clear, you can prepare better versus not knowing some stuff and you just freaking out and you're overreacting. Now you're sending shock through your body and stressing yourself unnecessarily. Not that it's not something to be concerned about, but it's not for you to do your body harm because of something that's happening external to you. Baby, I love y'all questions. Courtney, I want to put your comment on the screen so bad, but I'm gonna be good because yeah. All right, Starlit Siren Beauty. I think that's what it says. Not sure how they could do that just because what about the vice president and his spouse? What about him? That's no different from the Clarence Thomas thing. Oh, Ashley. I was just reading your username. Okay. So Ashley said, not sure how they could do that because what about the vice president and his spouse? Rhonda said, could they throw it back to the states like they did Roe? Absolutely, they could. They could. They could. But marriage, I think the first case about marriage is Griswold versus, that I can remember, is Griswold, Supreme Court case is Griswold versus Connecticut. And that case was a 1960, I don't know, 64, I don't remember what year. But Griswold versus Connecticut was about Fourth Amendment. It was about privacy. And it was about the right of a married couple to use contraceptives, right? The thing is, you have to go back to Article 4 when we talk about marriage licensing. And I'm just talking myself through it as I'm answering her question. I'm just thinking through stuff. So none of this gonna make sense right now. So Griswold would not be applicable. Is there another marriage case before Griswold Supreme Court? I don't think so. But if we look at Article 4 provides full faith and credit, and full faith and credit would become an issue because states would not be required, because it's not a federal law anymore. States would not have to acknowledge, and so it may become an issue with traveling. So you may not be able to vacation in certain places. You might not be able to take your family to Disney World in Orlando, Florida. I'm just using that as an example. But you may not be able to take your family on family vacation in Orlando, Florida, Universal Studios, Florida, Busch Gardens, Tampa, or take your honeymoon through Cape Canaveral because you're going on a cruise, or through Miami because you're going on a cruise and you're going to stay a couple of days in Miami first, because you got to fly American to go to most places in South America and the Caribbean. A lot of those places, American is the dominant airline, and Miami is the major hub. And now you can't even go there because Florida has changed its law. I'm saying Florida because it would be one of the first ones, according to the current precedents that we're seeing on the behaviors of Florida. And so now, how does that impact your travel? Right? So all of this goes together, guys. It gets deep, right? It gets deep because now it would no longer be a federal protected right. It would no longer be a federal right. It would be something in your state that your state provides. And so you could just imagine, based on precedents on other issues, you could imagine which states would allow it and which states wouldn't. You know, probably the same as those states that first passed same sex, the states that first passed marijuana. Ooh, I'm supposed to say that. Mary and Wanda. Yeah. All right. So it's things to think about, but not to worry about. Don't waste your time worrying. It won't add not a day, a second, nothing to your life. So don't worry. Be happy. All right. So this is federal government. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much. We have 2.5 minutes left. I am the pretty professor. I need to shampoo my hair. That's why this hat is on. But I have an event outside tomorrow, so I'm not shampooing my hair till after that, because it's rain and it's pollen. So that's why y'all getting the hat action. But make sure that you follow here on TikTok, and make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube Pretty Petty Politics on YouTube. If you joined today's class late, you can go back and watch this replay as well as our previous classes. There are some other things like the kitchen cabinet may be on there. Typically with the kitchen cabinet, I usually do not have this background. I have a kitchen cabinet background, so you'll know it's the kitchen cabinet. So there is a recording from the other night. I was up late and I got to thinking. So that one is a faith-based video. So you get a lot of things with me. You're gonna get my faith. You know, I might discuss something. So the other night we talked about the woman at the well in John chapter 4. And we went back to talking about Genesis with Jacob and Joseph, or Israel and Joseph. And it spurred because of a current event that is happening here in Houston, where a preacher doesn't want someone to get a job because of their gender-loving ideology or whatever. And so after I saw that video, I went and watched the video of him preaching the following Sunday. And that Sunday, last Sunday, the 23rd, he was preaching about the woman at the well. So I was like, he got this wrong. Like, he's missing what the author of the book, John, is saying, because the very first thing is obvious. Jesus asked that woman to serve him, even though he already knew who she was. She was for them streets. And he ends up calling her out about being for them streets, but he also let her know who he was and what he was there to do. So he still was offering her deliverance. And so, like stuff like that, you might get anything with me. So that was, I think, Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. Oh, thank you, T Bella. She said that was great to watch. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us this evening, because we usually do this in the morning, and I had to pivot today, but I did not want to not do this for you, because we would not be able to do it again until next week. And speaking of next week, we're probably going to do it on Tuesday, because I will be traveling and at a conference. So I will not be able to do this while at a conference next week. So I will figure it out, and we'll probably do this either Tuesday or Wednesday. I just need to look at my itinerary. All right. So I hope you all have enjoyed it. Make sure that you register. The way you register is you visit the YouTube page, Pretty Petty Politics. Under the description is a Google form. Please complete it with your correct email. If you're already registered, emails went out earlier. They went out last night. And the email from last night asks you about whether or not you want to participate in the book club. If you do, it tells you what to do, so that I'll know that. I'll add you to a list, and you'll start getting emails regarding that. All right. So I appreciate y'all. If you would like to support me, let me get my little banner up, because I'm not always good at this. If you would like to support me, I do have a website. It's www.julimcshay.com. And it's on my TikTok. You can just click the link because it's already embedded. But you can purchase my collection of recipes. I have a recipe book called Not by Bread Alone. You can purchase the physical copy from the Amazon website. Just put in the name Not by Bread Alone, put my name in. You can purchase it through there if you want a physical copy. If you're in Houston and you want a physical copy, you just shoot me an email and I can mail that to you. So you're not buying it from Amazon. You can buy it from me directly. But if you want the ebook, you can buy it off my website, www.julimcshay. And within 8 to 12 hours of ordering, because some people order at night and I be asleep and not checking emails, I will send it to you as soon as I see my email. I will make sure that you get your ebook copy, and the ebook is $9.99, whereas the physical copy is $29.99 through Amazon, and if you want to purchase from me directly. All right. Thank you so much. That's the way you can support me. I don't want to ask for donations, although I know some folks do that who teach in these spaces, or they have you buy curriculums and all of that. I can give you the curriculum. I can teach you myself. I'd rather you purchase the recipe book. That way you still getting something tangible for your dollar. So there you have it. That is all I have for today. Thank you so much. Thank you, Demi. I'm doing better, huh? Because it used to be a struggle for me to say, buy my book. I'm doing better with it. And now, if you want to buy something else, I do have another company, and it's called Just Whipped. It's Just Whipped. What is it? justwhip.bigcartel.com. And this for the fellas. So if you got beards and ladies, if you I have a scalp balm. This company's been around for 11 years. This month makes 11 years. No, 9 years, starting in 2016. So 9 years this month. Just Whip has been around. We also have an Eco Butter for those of you who maybe you or a child has eczema, or let me say skin irritations. Y'all know what I'm talking about, because I don't want to say eczema because I'm not a pharmacy company. But let's just say the environment causes your body to react a certain kind of way. I do have a balm for that. It's called Eco Butter, and it really does help. But beyond that, if you do have issues like that, my number one recommendation, because this is how real I am, because it's typically with kids who experience it, stay away from red dyes. All numbers of red and yellow dyes. because that is what is causing the irritation. It's not as it's in your blood. All right. So you got to rid yourself of those things. And it's really hard to do for kids because everything that kids eat have those dyes in it. So if they're not hydrated properly and they're eating and consuming all those dyes, then they're going to keep having those, what do you call it? They're going to keep experiencing those dry patches that they're just scratching. Now they're bumping up and now they're bleeding and all of that. All right. So I'm rambling now. Peace out. See y'all later. Thank you so much. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, TikTok. And I will see you all next time. Peace.